Hey, welcome back everybody, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the newest movies I reviewed this weekend. I'm talking about Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho. I would categorize Last Night in Soho as a murder mystery thriller with a supernatural twist. Last Night in Soho was directed by Edgar Wright, stars Ann Taylor-Joy, Thomasin McKenzie as the main character of Eloise, Matt Smith as Jack, Michael Ahoa as John, and last but not certainly least, Terrence Stamp. In Last Night in Soho, we follow the main character of Eloise, who is just accepted into the London School of Fashion. What we learn about Eloise, or Ellie as she likes to be called right away from the beginning of the movie, is she is a big fan of retro, but more importantly, she's a big fan of the 60s and likes to incorporate that style into everything that she does. And we also learn from the beginning of the movie very briefly that Ellie also might be clairvoyant, or she might have the shining. But like I said, Ellie gets accepted by the London School of Fashion. She leaves her grandmother's house, and her grandmother kind of warns her ahead of time, hey, you're not used to big crowds and you're not used to the city life. So of course, once Ellie gets to London, she is definitely a fish out of water. She is not used to anything like this at all. She's not used to all these different groups of people, and she's very much so of an introvert. She's also very obsessed with the 60s, like I said. However, no one else seems to enjoy her obsession as much as she does. However, in school, she is doing very well. However, she's not meeting very many friends. However, she does manage to meet one good friend. Ellie, meet John. John, Ellie. These two become very close and very good friends. However, as much as she loves the school and she's getting along very well with John, she's just not liking the dorm life and also the girls in her dorm room. So she moves out and she moves into an older lady's house who's renting out a room. And that's where things start getting a little weird. And remember when I said Ellie might be psychic? Well, she might be psychic or might be clairvoyant. We're not exactly sure. And like I said, she might even have the shining. And I'm leaning towards that she does have the shining of some sort. Because once she falls asleep in her new room, she's able to transport her conscience, kind of like Kitty Pryde in the X-Men. But she's able to go back in time and she's following one particular person from the 60s. She follows this one particular character named Sandy because Sandy is everything that Ellie is not. Sandy's an extrovert and she wants to be a star, the biggest star of the 60s. As much as Ellie loves it, every time she goes back and when she returns from the 60s, she starts bringing back bad karma with her and also possibly some other entities as well. I'm going to go ahead and say this right off the bat. I thought this movie was awesome. I really appreciated the way they made this movie look. The look of this film was awesome. The fact that the cinematography was really good, but also the fact how they portrayed London as of right now in the present time. Also, the way they were able to go back into the 60s to make London look how it, I'm assuming how it really looked in the 60s at the time. I've noticed a lot of movies of lately can't recreate something from the past that well like they used to. So oftentimes what they rely on is soundtrack. A lot of times they just go to the soundtrack and they hope to recreate the look of the movie just with the soundtrack alone. However, that's not the case in this movie at all. Not only is the soundtrack really good and doesn't have a whole lot of big 60s hits like you would think, just the sound of the songs that they were using, also like the fact that you could hear the organ in the background, the synthesizers, it all sounded very authentic. Also, the wardrobe in the movie was very well done. It looked like something I would see from an old Bond movie from the 60s, any movie from the 60s, or even old 60 television shows. This movie had the look down and it was nailed down very well. I appreciated in this film that they don't necessarily tell you everything. They kind of just mention it, which is good because I don't like it when they over-explain some stuff. Because usually when they over-explain, it kind of takes the mystery out of the way and it kind of makes it more corny than anything. So when we get to Ellie's character and the fact that they don't overly explain like her possible clairvoyance or the fact that she might be leaning towards crazy, you're not exactly 100% sure, at least not in the first half of the movie. And what I do appreciate about that is, like I said, they kept it out of mystery. I really enjoyed the murder mystery aspect of the movie very much. I thought that was very cool because you're not exactly sure what happened or who's doing what to who. Did it really happen? Is this something that Ellie's making up? You're not 100% sure. And Terrence Stamp's character in this film brings more mystery to everything. So you're not exactly sure what happened to who, to what. And you're just kind of waiting around. You kind of put the pieces together yourself. However, not till the very end, not till it all comes together. You're like, oh, I see. Good job. Last Night in Soho was everything I wanted it to be and more. I would not be surprised if this movie got nominated for costumes or costume design, just because, like I said, everything from the 60s, they did such a good job on that alone. I'm going to give Last Night in Soho a B+. Well, hopefully you like what you see here. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mike the Movie Misfit. I'll see you at the movies.
Get more out of life. Go out